Hello, my name's Ian Seeger from Pilot Career News. On the 6th and 7th of November, we held our very first virtual edition of Pilot Careers Live. We streamed over 30 different seminars with 60 speakers. There were 2 days packed full of great information. Of course, we recorded everything, and you're about to watch one of the videos from the event. Before you do, I just want to thank our sponsors, Bose, Alsim, Entro, and of course Pulis. Without them and without the exhibitors, it wouldn't be possible. The exhibitor pages are still live, so feel free to head on over there. Go to www.pilotcareerslive.com and click through to the exhibitors. There's loads of information, loads of downloads, all sorts of great stuff there for you. Anyway, enjoy the video, and if you find it useful, really appreciate it if you click subscribe on our YouTube channel. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to the next Q&A session where this is our last but one Q&A session for what's been a mammoth 2 days of Pilot Careers Live virtual. We've still got another whole session to come with some great stuff in it, so make sure you stick around for that. In the meantime, if we don't get through your questions here, please feel free to pop to the exhibitor stands and ask the questions there. There's loads of people there waiting to take your questions, and if you need something answered a couple of times, you can answer it. You can get it answered by pretty much every exhibitor if you want. Quick, one of our last thanks to the sponsors, Bose, Alsim, Pulis, Entro. And if you buy something from Pulis, use the code PCL, you get 5% at checkout. I don't know how long that will last, so get on then. It will last for a couple of days, I'm sure. But anyway, do we have any questions, Karen?
We do. The questions that came in for Steve earlier seem to have disappeared from the screen. Oh no, here we are. Right, so we have some questions on the drone flying that I'll put across to Steve, please, if I may. So, hi Steve, welcome back. Thank you very much. Could you explain the changes coming up regarding commercial drone flying, and will you need a drone pilot license?
Okay, so yeah, the new changes are on the face of it quite complex, but it's good news for if you're flying commercially. What you did used to need was what's called the PFCO, which was the permission for commercial operations. They've basically taken the commercial aspect of that out, and the new regulations, there's two separate ones. One's called the A2C of C, the other one's called the GVC, and it's all done on the weight of the aircraft. So realistically, you don't need either of those licenses if you were to fly a drone which weighs under 250 grams. Realistically, if you were going to fly commercially, you'd need to know how to do a risk assessment, and you would probably need a drone that weighs more than that. So you don't need it to fly commercially, but yes, you do if you're going to be using the drones and carry out the risk assessments they'll expect you to do.
Great, thank you. I should have said, can we? That's not criticising how you've just answered that, but we've got quite a few questions, so let's fire through them if we may. Yeah. So the next one for you, Steve, is how long does a commercial drone pilot course take, and how much does it cost?
Okay, so the A2CFC is just a 1-day course, and it's £199, and the GVC one is a 3-day course, and it's £799.
Brilliant, thank you. And what can a drone pilot earn?
Whatever you can ask for. If you're working for a big company, ask for loads of money. We know people that charge over £1,000 a day, but realistically, when you're starting out, maybe £300 a day, £500 a day is definitely a reasonable thing to ask.
Right, okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, I have a few questions for Sarah here as well. Sarah, could you put your helicopter flight hours towards your flight hours for planes?
There would be some credits if you were to retrain. So if you've got a fixed wing license currently, there are some sort of dispensations that you can get against the hours. If you're going the other way, the same is true as well. It's not a huge amount. It's a small single figure number of the modular PPL course, and then between 20 and 50 hours credit towards hour building towards a CPL. But largely they are two different licenses.
Great, thank you. Sarah, isn't helicopter flight training even more expensive than fixed wing?
Well, the hourly rates are, but the way we've got the career programs for just around about 57,000 plus VAT, you can do everything all the way up to CPL. So you can be a commercial pilot licensed on one type for sort of including that, that's 69,000. And then if you want to add the instrument rating on, that's quite expensive, but you're typically going to get that added on later if you are going into a specific industry, you don't have to get an IR, and there are jobs that that are available to basic CPLs. And then adding the instructor course onto that isn't too expensive, so it can actually be cheaper overall. It's because the operator, which I probably didn't mention in the presentation, but the operator, if you're going offshore or into a big operation where there's a heavy type, the cost of that could be somewhere between 60 and 100,000 pounds, but the operator pays for that.
Okay,
Traditionally.
thanks. I think this is probably one for Rod coming up now. How about the people who are halfway through training? Should we pause our training for now, or should we continue?
Our advice to our students at the moment in that situation is carry on, but don't do your CPLIR and your APS MCC until the job market picks up.
Presumably, if it's a modular course, if it's an integrated course, then you need to continue, I presume.
Yeah.
You have your choice over it, yes.
Yeah. Does completing your PPL stand you in a better place to get onto a training course? It's from Alice.
Onto a training course. So presumably Alice is talking about getting onto an integrated training course. No, it doesn't. Sometimes you won't be credited with your hours done on the PPL if you're applying for an integrated course. It's at the discretion of the ATO. So some ATOs will allow a credit, others don't.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let Ian read this question out because I want him to do a little accent with it, a little impersonation with it.
Hello, hello, hello. Do you have to be a policeman to be a police pilot? And please reply only once.
No, you don't. You don't need to be a policeman to be a police pilot. Generally, they're not police. They're not police trained at all. So
Kind of hello,
Hello, wasn't it? Hello, hello, hello. What was it?
Got him. Brilliant, thanks. Another one here for Sarah. Are helicopter ATPLs the same as fixed wing? Or Rod, whoever wants to answer that one.
They are slightly different. There are different exams. Some of them are common, but 7 of the 14 subjects are helicopter specific. They cover very much the same sort of content, probably about 80% common, but they are separate exams.
Right, this question could start a debate, I think, couldn't it? This next one coming up.
Yeah.
So this one is for Steve and for Sarah. Will helicopters be replaced by drones? Stands back and watches.
Oh, I've got a good example of this actually. So I've just been speaking to the Forestry Commission, and they actually have a helicopter that they use to fly and check different forests, but they actually use drones in tandem with the helicopter. So no, the answer is you would have a helicopter doing large areas. A drone couldn't fly those larger areas, and a drone could be used to be a bit more specific when researching maybe an area.
That's good. I thought that was going to be far more entertaining. Sorry.
I thought we were going to have to separate the Zoom screens there for a minute.
Okay, brilliant. Rod, how are ATOs helping cadets who have recently graduated?
Very much depends on the ATO, to be frank. So some are helping, some are not. I think it's quite reasonable to be asking an ATO for help with currency training. You can't just stop flying and maintain the skills. They gradually deteriorate, particularly when you don't have many hours in the first place. If you are in that position, I would be talking to the ATO and I'd be asking for a decent rate from them. They have extra capacity. Just ask them for flying at cost.
Yeah, I think again that goes back to exactly the tip we've been giving everybody over these last few days. It's research. Speak to your ATOs, ask the questions. There are ATOs out there who are doing free currency training to keep you up to date with your skills between graduating and airline opportunities coming along. So, just ask the questions to see whether the ATO that you're interested in is doing something along those lines or otherwise, whatever's going to suit you as an individual.
Yeah, I think if you want to go back onto the on-demand section, if you're watching this, then the very first seminar we did, which was training through the COVID crisis, I think that was a question that cropped up for a bunch of the ATO people who were on that panel, and they gave some answers to that. And it does vary between ATOs. But clearly, you just need to make sure. This whole thing is about making sure that you take informed decisions.
Okay.
And the other thing to bear in mind there is that simulator training actually costs not a lot to deliver. So simulator time isn't very expensive. So it's quite reasonable for you to go back and ask for time.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very expensive.
There's one more question before we close, which has been highlighted. I don't think it's really for this forum, but someone's obviously telling me here we need to ask it.
Okay.
So is it ever worth paying for a type rating, e.g. a 737 yourself, when then approach an airline? Would that put you in a better position?
No.
We're all shaking our heads on that.
There is one exception, I have to say. The corporate jet market, often there are self-funded type ratings. It's the norm, and there are jobs around in the corporate jet market at the moment. But I'd be cautious. There are horror stories of people who've been promised by an organisation that they will get work. Just do a type rating license, and will get work, and the work doesn't materialise. So be very cautious about it. But it is a norm in that market, so don't. I'm not saying no, don't do it, but do it after research.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we've got a few more questions here, but they're not really relevant for this forum, so we'll hold them over for
I quite like the one about hair.
Okay, I knew you were going to bring that one in. So should I cut my long hair, I'm male, to get more chance of being hired by an airline? I'm going to answer that one if I may, before anybody jumps in. I think the answer to that question is, look at pilots and see how professionally they present themselves in general, and decide what's the right way for you to present yourself when you go along for an interview. Pilots are a professional career, and you need to think about what looks right in the uniform. So again, it's about making your own personal choice, but what looks right in the uniform is how you should present yourself.
I just wish I had the option of asking that question.
Would anybody say anything different to that on the panel before we close?
No, I think it's good advice. Years we used to joke that if you go to EasyJet headquarters wearing a tie, they'd snip it off as you walked in. But if you notice when you're flying with EasyJet crews, the pilots are all dressed like terrorists.
Very smartly.
Long hair.
Very smartly. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate your time this afternoon, and thanks for staying on to join the Q&A panel. We're going to close this one off now. There's a couple more questions coming in, but we do have to try and stick to time. We've got one more session this afternoon to go, which has a couple of panel presentations on it. So stay tuned for that. We're just going to pop to an advert briefly, and then we'll be back with Ian, who's hosting the first panel after the break.
Bit of a shuffling.
So thanks very much. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see everybody later. Bye.